Perfect.
Hey guys.
Hi, Grace.
So you've all been here the past few weeks, and you know that we're on this series called The New Thing. And I'm going to read the verse to start that inspired this whole series, and that's Isaiah 43:19. We've read it every week so far. It says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the desert." So the first week, Pat preached about the new you. He talked about how Jesus comes into our hearts and makes us a new creation. And the second week, which was last week, he preached about the new purpose. And he talked about how we now, as a youth group, have this, and individually have this new purpose that's to pursue God and love people. And with it, he announced our new name, which is Pursuit. And so this week, I'm going to preach about the new blessing. And I'm not going to tell you the new blessing that God wants to give you, because that's all individual. I don't know that, but that's all individual. I'm not going to say the new blessing that God's going to give your families, because that's individual for your families. But I am going to tell you how we can receive that new blessing and how we can really, truly step into it. And so first, I'm just going to pray. God, I thank you for giving me this opportunity. I thank you for every single person in this room. I pray that you just speak through me. God, I pray that you just take over and that this is what you want to say. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
So you guys know when you're on your phone and that new update available sign pops up, and you have the option to click install now or install later. No one ever clicks install now. No, not a single person will ever click install now. And you're lying if you say they do. The phone companies come out with new model after new model after new update, and it's like, I just got used to the last one. I was just comfortable with the last one. Why are they giving me a new one? So we click install later, and we do it again, and we do it again, and we push it off as long as we can until all of a sudden we realize our phones might be a little slower than usual, and then maybe we can't download an app that we wanted to download because it doesn't work with your phone, and then you see your friend do something cool that you can't because you didn't update it. So we finally give in after all that time of clicking install later. And I think it's funny because I think a lot of times that's what we do with God. I think God wants to give us a new blessing. Like that verse says, he wants to do a new thing. And so many times he's like, here, I want to give this to you. We look at him and we're like, install later, install later. I don't want it, install later. Whether we realize it or not, that's what we're doing. And that eventually makes us miss out on the new blessing that God wants to give us. And you know who experienced this firsthand was the Israelites. You all know the story about how the Israelites were taken out of Egypt and brought to the promised land. But I want to tell you about how it started. A lot of times we don't think about that. So the Israelites were brought into Egypt at first to save them from the famine that was happening. So Egypt was a blessing. God brought them into Egypt so that they could live and be prosperous and have families. Egypt was a blessing, and I think a lot of times we forget that. And then eventually that changed. So Pharaoh, the leader of Egypt, decided he was intimidated by them. And so he put them into slavery. He actually decided that they weren't going to be free anymore, and he was going to enslave them. And it describes this, just so you get a good picture, in Exodus 1:11. It says, so they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Rameses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with harsh labor in brick and mortar and with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly. So Egypt was no longer a blessing to them. They were enslaved. They were slaves. And then the great part of the story we all know, God calls Moses and he tells Moses, you're going to go to the Israelites and you are going to lead them out of Egypt into this new amazing land. And he says this, he tells Moses in Exodus 3:16, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me and said, I have watched over you and have seen what has been done to you in Egypt. And I have promised to bring you up out of your misery. Say out of.
Out of.
Out of. Say it one more time.
Out of.
In Egypt, into the land flowing with milk and honey. Flowing with milk and honey, that just means a really awesome land.
Yeah.
To sum it up. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But, so basically that was the story. The Israelites had to step out of Egypt to go into the promised land.
Wow.
So in other words, they had to go out of their old blessing to go into the new.
Ooh, that's good.
They had to leave behind their old phone update to download the new one. That's what they were doing.
All right.
And so that is what I want to base my message off of. You see, Moses, the Israelites had this great leader come in and tell them, it's time to go. God has something better for you. It's time to go. But I think so often it's not always that obvious to us. Like Moses isn't coming in here saying, guys, it's time to go. Like we don't have that. But anymore. But we kind of do. We now have Jesus to follow.
Right.
They had Moses to lead them, but now we have Jesus to lead us.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to talk about how we can make sure that we don't stay stuck in an old blessing and how we can always be stepping into a new blessing.
Wow, that's good.
So I have 3 points, 3 ways, 3 things that we can make sure that we do, and then I'm going to wrap up. So we'll do super quick.
Cool.
The first one is expect change. Expect change. See, I've always been the type of girl that dreamed about my wedding someday. Like I was the little girl to put on the fairy tales just so that I could see the ending scene when they get married and live happily ever after.
Yeah.
I loved it. And I was just like always waiting for my Prince Charming to come in and like sweep me off my feet. Like I loved it. And I even like middle school, I had like a Pinterest app. I had a Pinterest folder that said, it was titled Love and Future Weddings. And I actually still have it now. So I said middle school, I was when it started.
Yeah.
She has Pinterest fiction.
See, Love and Future Weddings, that was it, that's what it was called.
I literally kind of
Like,
Pinterest existed?
yeah.
Like,
I'm
you're
not that old.
I mean, I
dating, so-
understand this, but I still thought Pinterest was only like 9 years old.
She's 18.
I'm 18.
Oh.
So yes, Pinterest existed, and I had this Love and Future Weddings folder where I would put everything that I wanted, like my wedding to look like. I even have wedding dresses in there. I have rings in there. I had everything. I had it all. and so because I was so like excited for the day that I found the one, I was looking at couples around me. I was looking at couples that I looked up to. And what I noticed is that it doesn't seem easy. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, being in a relationship is gonna take work. So I realized that I was gonna have to change things once I get into a relationship. I had no idea what I was gonna change. Like, I had no idea what it even was like to be in a relationship. I had no idea, but I knew I was gonna have to change things. I didn't know, but I expected change.
Right.
So fast forward, Pat came into my life and we got into a relationship, and sure enough, things had to change. I had to learn how to be selfless. I had to learn how to put him first. I had to learn how to not only think about myself. I still struggle with it. It's still hard, but because I was able to, because I was expecting the change, I was able to do it.
Right.
If I went into the relationship saying, I'm perfect, I'm not going to change a single thing, the relationship wouldn't have worked out. And I wouldn't have experienced the blessing that has come from it. And
That's so
the
good.
Israelites went through this too. They had to change. God told them that they had to change where they were. They had to move to a new place. They had to change the way that they lived, from the way that they farmed, what they ate, how they lived, and even like the Bible says they had to change the way that they worshiped. And the cool thing is that they were told about all of this ahead of time. They weren't just like blindly like expected to change. They were told, I'm going to take you out of Egypt. You're going to have to change this. You're going to have to change this. It wasn't specific, but they knew that they had to expect change. And if they didn't expect that change, they never would have been able to experience the blessings and the promised land.
That's good, yeah.
And so, what does that mean for you? I'm not saying that it means know what to do every step of the way, know how to change. Because a lot of times, you're not going to know how. It just means simple. It just means let's be flexible. Let's not be so stuck in the way that we do things that we miss out on what God wants to do next. The world around us, we see it every day, like the phone companies. We see it. It's changing. It's moving forward. It's becoming newer and newer, new things. And we're not exempt from that. And God's definitely not exempt from that. God's always doing new things. And so we don't want to stay so stuck in our ways that we can't step into the new thing.
So good,
So that is my first point, expect change. My next point for how we can experience the new blessing is be okay being uncomfortable. Now this is not a fun point, I get that. No one wants to hear this, so just bear with me. Okay, so how many of you, when you were younger, or even now, were super terrified to talk to adults? Like, oh, come on. No, so I afraid to talk to adults. I was like, I'm standing up here talking to you now. Like, I like talking to people, so you may not realize it, but I was terrified to talk to people, but mostly adults. And the worst of them all was waitresses. I was so scared. And so I would go to a restaurant with my mom, and I would pick out what I wanted, and I would tell my mom. And I would make sure she was paying attention, always paying attention, so that when the waitress came over, she could tell her what I wanted. And I would not be comfortable and settled until she did that. And God forbid the waitress actually did look at me and say, what can I get for you? I would get red, I would get sweaty, I would just stare at my mom. I would ignore the waitress and I would just stare at my mom. And then one day I was going out to lunch with my older brother, and I told him what I wanted. And I was like, can you order for me? And he was like, no. What are you talking about? Like, I need you to order for me. And he looked at me and he said, do you want to be afraid to talk to people your whole life? I was like, no. So he's like, so you're gonna order? So I was like, okay. I was preparing, I was like rehearsing in my head what I'm gonna say. I'm like, okay, I'll take chicken tenders.
Everyone does that one.
Yeah, I was terrified. I was chicken tenders, shit, like over and over again. And the waitress came over. The waitress came I was like 16.
Proceeds to say burger without realizing I don't want a burger.
I don't know. Maybe like 5th grade. That's kind of old. No, 5th grade.
That's reasonable.
Like 10.
Like 10.
Chicken tenders, that's a reasonable age.
I still eat chicken tenders.
Yeah, I feel like
Chicken tenders at fancy restaurants, I still do it. Okay, but I did it. As uncomfortable as it was, and I was like squirming in my chair, I was so uncomfortable, but I told her what I wanted. So the next time we went out to eat, I was just as uncomfortable, and it was awful, but I told the waitress what I wanted. And I kept doing it, and I kept being uncomfortable, and it, for a long time, did not get better. But I kept doing it. I stuck out those times of just feeling uncomfortable, and eventually I grew in that. And I think, honestly, I think it's safe to say, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be talking to you here today.
Can you order now? Are you good?
Yes.
When you're
I can order now.
and your mom leaves you with a cashier.
Yes, no, I can order now. But if I didn't accept those times of being uncomfortable, I probably would still need my mom to order.
Can you order for me?
Yeah, it was those times of accepting, okay, I'm gonna feel uncomfortable, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And this applies to the Israelites too. They were in the wilderness for 40 years.
That's right.
Don't tell me that wasn't uncomfortable for them.
Alright, geographically, Israel is pretty
Yeah.
close to Egypt.
Yeah.
It does not take 40 years on foot to make it there. Even if, like,
Moving
you're
on.
walking in
Yeah.
a big group
No, it's true.
with lots of interruptions.
They were walking in
it
circles.
still
They were-
wouldn't take that.
Actually,
Same religion
it's
walking in
because
circles.
Yeah, they
it
were.
was
You
different
think
than
there's wrong?
gorillas today. It was some Pangea.
It was not Pangea that, it wasn't that long.
All right.
Okay,
Anyway.
It was dinosaur
Anyway.
God.
Anyway. They were walking in the wilderness, and there were times when they just wanted to go back to Egypt.
Yeah.
Like, why would they want to go back to Egypt? They were literally slaves. Why would they want to? Because they were comfortable there. And and when they were walking in the wilderness, that was not comfortable.
Right.
But if they did go back to Egypt, they would have never gotten to the promised
Wow,
land.
that's
Their
so good.
ancestors would have never gotten to the promised land. But they endured those times of being uncomfortable, and that got them there.
Yeah.
So I
that's
think
good.
a lot of times discomfort is what comes right before the new thing that God's doing.
That's so good.
So when we're so afraid of being uncomfortable, we're not going to get to that new thing that God's doing.
Yeah.
And for you, that may be telling one of your friends at school about Jesus. Maybe that feels uncomfortable at first.
Yeah.
Maybe that even means telling them you're a Christian, like you go to like like maybe that does mean that.
Yeah.
And it may feel uncomfortable, but if you step out and just accept, okay, I'm gonna feel uncomfortable a little bit.
That's good.
I'm
That's
gonna
good.
feel uncomfortable for a little bit. You're gonna get to that blessing that God
Yeah.
wants to give you.
Yeah.
So that was my first point. My first point was expect change.
Expect
My
change.
second point was be okay being uncomfortable. And my third and final reason for what we can do to make sure that we step into the new blessing is to always keep the vision.
That's so
You guys know the movie Finding Nemo?
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that movie, and Dory was always my favorite character. I always kind of related to her a little bit. Not really proud of it, but I did. I really loved Dory, and I really loved her. And if you remember, she had like memory loss. She had short-term memory loss. She could not remember a single thing. She would start a conversation, and by the middle of it, forget who she was even talking to. Like she had just no clue what she was doing.
Yeah.
And then she met Marlin, Nemo's dad, and Marlin told her, "We're gonna find my son Nemo. We're gonna find him." And over and over again throughout the movie, she was told, "We're gonna find him. We're gonna find him." So that was her vision. That was what she wanted. And if you remember, when it came down to it, she was the one to remember the address of where Nemo was. Do you guys remember the address?
Sherman,
Something
Sherman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one, that address. She was able to remember that. Like, how can someone with such a bad memory remember that? I think that's because she had her eyes on the vision. She had her eyes on a goal. She knew that she wanted to find Nemo, and because of that, she was able to overcome the obstacles that stood in front of her.
Wow.
And so the Israelites, they were told by God, I'm going to give you a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay, they definitely didn't know specifically what that looked like. When I think of like a land flowing with milk and honey, I think of like a Winnie the Pooh, like Winnie the Pooh theme park, like I don't know. But so they didn't know specifically, but they knew that this was a good place.
Yeah.
This was a good place. And so when going through the wilderness, when leaving their home, when walking through it, they were able to overcome all the obstacles because they held on to that promise. They held on to that vision.
Wow.
They knew that they were going somewhere better.
Yeah.
If they didn't have a vision, why would they ever leave? Why would they go? They had no reason to. But God gave them a vision, and they held on to it, knowing that they were going to go to a place that was better than where they were. And so I'm not saying for you guys to know your whole plan of your life, have it figured out. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying have a goal, have standards, know where where God wants you to be. Even if it's something like for your own life, I want to be better at talking to people. I want to help people. However that looks. For this ministry, maybe it's I want it to grow. we may not know how, we may not know what that even looks like, but we have a vision and we have a goal. And if we hold on to that, we can overcome anything.
That's so good.
So those are my 3 points. 1, expect change. 2, be okay being uncomfortable. And 3, always have a vision. And like I said, Moses, to just wrap up, the Israelites had Moses, and we have Jesus. So how much more can we do?
Wow. Yeah.
How much more can we overcome all these changes and all this discomfort with Jesus as our leader? And I just want to tell you guys a quick story where all these things, these 3 things, really applied to me and really helped me get to me standing here today. So about 1.5 years ago, I was deciding where to go to school, where to go to college, and Southeastern was just becoming more and more like, okay, that's the one. Like, I'm meant to be there. And I knew me going there was going to mean I was going to have to go 1,000 miles away from home, which was far. It is far. And so I knew, I expected, okay, things are going to have to change. Once I'm away from home, things are going to have to change. And when I got here, fast forward, sure enough, things did have to change. I didn't know what was going to change, but things did. From the small things to the big things. I had to change the way that I kept my room clean. I had to change my dependence on my parents. They're still there for me, but it was different because I was here. I had to change the way that I handled my money. And if I didn't expect those changes, I would not have been able to really survive here on my own. And being here, I had, the first semester especially, I had a season of discomfort. Pat wasn't here yet. He was still back in Connecticut, and I can't tell you how many times I called him crying, saying, I just want to feel comfortable. I want to feel comfortable with these new friends. I want to feel comfortable in this dorm like I was in my own house. I want to feel comfortable on this new team. I just want to feel comfortable. That was like the only thing I wanted. But what kept me moving forward and kept me like enduring the discomfort was knowing that God brought me here. God brought me here and He gave me a vision. I didn't know what it was, I didn't know what it was for, but I knew that He brought me here for something better. And so holding on to that helped me get through the discomfort. And so now, even standing here right now and talking to you guys is me like reaching my promise. It's me seeing the like blessings that have come out of me expecting change and going through the season of discomfort. Like standing here and I'm talking to you, it really does show me that like I got through that and I'm experiencing a new blessing because of it. And so to close, I just want to encourage change. We're all experiencing change. We always are in one way or another. And so I just want to encourage you, you don't need to be afraid of it. You don't need to be afraid of things changing around you, because if you hold on to these 3 things and you remember that we don't have to do it on our own, like the Israelites followed Moses, we can just follow Jesus and He will lead us.
That's so good.
We're going to be good. And because of that change, we're going to experience the new blessing that God wants to give us. And so maybe you were listening and you were like, okay, there's no way I can expect change. I don't like change. I'm not going to expect it. Maybe you were listening and you said, why would I be okay being uncomfortable? That's the worst. Or maybe you're like, what the heck is vision? Like, I don't even know what vision is. Well, I have good news, and that's that, like I said before, we're not doing it on our own. We can ask Jesus, okay, show me. Show me that where I'm going to need to change. Show me that even when I'm feeling uncomfortable, it just means blessings are on the other side.
So good.
And especially, show me a vision. Ask God to show you, give you a vision, give you a goal, give you just an idea of where He wants you, a goal that you have for your life. And especially a goal that you have for this ministry. We set a vision that's to pursue God and love people. So holding on to that, we're moving forward. So I just want to pray to end it.